How do you contribute to addressing it, the human trafficking phenomenon, locally and internationally, please?
I think locally what's important is to create the awareness in the public so that as the efforts are being taken by law enforcement that we have the public knowledge and assistance to report. As there are limited assets within law enforcement throughout the region, worldwide we're seeing law enforcement assets dwindling due to budgets, that we need the public to step forward. We need them to tell us. But if we don't tell them what to look for, they're not going to know what they're seeing. So we need them to come forward and say, I think, I suspect, and make that phone call. You see something, you say something, and give us the opportunity to perhaps go save those people.
Okay, so do you have any coordination with government or international bodies to confront this phenomenon?
As myself responsible for the Windsor Port Authority in Canada, I work directly with the Department of Homeland Security here, the law enforcement agencies of Detroit Police, Michigan State Police, the FBI, and then in Canada with the RCMP, National Security, the Ontario Provincial Police. This is a high topic of conversation for all of us. It is while it's a phenomenon, it's something that has occurred for hundreds of years. But what we see is the brutality that's related to this. And how these people are harvested, if you will. We now have that opportunity and coordination to try to prevent it, or at least to deal with it properly so we can bring more victims out of this trade.
Okay, so do you have any real efforts at the local level to combat the human trafficking phenomenon?
Along the borders between the United States and Canada, there is a very strong Border Patrol presence, not only in the United States, but also in Canada with the RCMP and provincial police forces and municipal, where as part of our patrols, as we move along the waterway, which I'm responsible for, we're watching for things that are out of the usual, the trafficking of people, the movement of people in boats. They may look like a pleasure craft out for the day, but we're looking for the indicators of moving of people. So the coordinated efforts amongst law enforcement is most important.
Okay, finally, have you dealt with human trafficking cases in past or recently or currently?
Yes, I dealt with some, actually a woman and her child are being trafficked from the Ukraine. About 5-6 years ago, they were brought across from the United States into Canada. I encountered them coming across one of our docks. The handler was there. He answered all the questions. They did not speak any English. They weren't dressed for the weather. And I realized what was in front of me. And I contacted the local police to come in and intercept these people. They were taken away, provided some safety, some refuge. The gentleman was arrested and taken away to immigration services.
Okay. So do you think this topic now, it's meant to discuss it in United Nations or any other official platform?
I think the United Nations needs to take the forefront of this. I think for them, I've served overseas, I've seen the trafficking, I've seen the smuggling. I think it's important for United Nations to come together. I think it's all of humanity should be coming together and discussing this. An event like tonight's very important to raise that awareness and have that conversation and bring us together to keep talking about it.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, good evening. Just wanted to get a quick comment on you being here and about this event as well and how important it is.
Well, I just got back from Lansing. I'm a state rep. And I'm just here to learn and listen to all these people from all kinds of walks of life. Ahmad Hamad is putting together another important gathering. Today we're going to be focusing on the problems related to human trafficking, which is a human rights issue here and abroad.
Are we doing enough as a state in regard to human trafficking?
I think Michigan has taken some steps, but you can never do enough. And it is good that the American Human Rights Council is putting this issue at the front. And we're going to have a packed house tonight. And we have civil rights leaders, we have elected officials, we have community leaders, block club leaders. And what's very special about the American Human Rights Council is it's very grassroots and inclusive and diverse.
What's your message to young people?
My message to young people is to follow your passion and work hard, seize the moment. Don't be afraid to step out of your shell. And also, you have to realize politics affects your lives. Right now, we're trying to pass a law that will save 10,000 jobs of mental health counselors. You have people who have practiced profession for 31 years, but there's some rules that might eliminate their jobs. You never know when politics may come to you. What person you elect, what judge you elect, may determine whether someone is treated unfairly in the criminal justice system, whether someone gets an equal opportunity for a job. So it's very important to be involved and get good grades.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isaac Robinson. I am Ahmad Hamad's sidekick. He's Batman, I'm Robin. And I'm not the Joker. But it is my true honor to introduce somebody with a resume so long we would be here tomorrow if I read it. So if you open up your bio, you can learn about our distinguished Mistress of Ceremony, the Honorable Denise Langford Morris, Oakland County Circuit Court. Please give it up for our Mistress of Ceremony. Well, she thought I was going to read the whole thing. That's why you're waiting. Was that all, y'all? Give it up for Judge.
Thank you, Isaac.
All right, here comes the judge.
Representative Isaac Robinson, thank you so much. My name is Denise Langford Morris. I have the honor and privilege of serving as your Mistress of Ceremonies this evening. First, let's give the American Human Rights Council a big round of applause for having this again this evening. I know that everyone is excited to hear from all of the presenters and our keynote speaker, but first we're going to hear from the man of the hour. He is a one-man show that really is supported by his entire board daily, and he works so tremendously hard to ensure that every single one of the programs, every one of the events, every one of the supporters is recognized this evening. And we want to give him a big round of applause, my friend, Ahmad.
Well, indeed, I cannot compete with the great Judge, the Dean of the Oakland Circuit Court here. I'll try my best to. I know I'm shorter, not shorter than him. Well, indeed, I thank you all for being here, embracing one of the most pressing challenges facing our nation and facing the world, which is human trafficking. Human trafficking is a local challenge, national challenge, and a global challenge. So when we talk about the humanity, we talk about all the victims who falls to the traps of the human trafficking crimes against the humanity. I want first to note the presence and welcome U.S. District Judge Terrence Berg here from our federal court. I know that I promised Judge Wood, who couldn't be with us, that I would be saying this because she wanted to be here. And when Judge Berg said he is going to be here, so we told her that then Judge Berg would be present with us on behalf of the U.S. District Court today. So thank you, Judge, for being here. As you may well know, we do this annual forum every year, and we choose one challenge to be the main topic and the only topic that we discuss. 3 years ago, we talked about refugees as a universal crisis and shared a humanitarian responsibility. Last year, we talked about hate and violence and the threat of domestic terrorism. This year, it's about human trafficking. And I'm gonna leave the rest to our great presenters who will showcase to you how serious this of a challenge facing all of us and any of us could be its claim victim. Definitely, I make a disclaimer here that this event is by invitation only. But as you well know, as a non-profit organization, we always strive for support. So we can put these events together and we can be part of the fight on behalf of justice and serving humanity. So if you look at your program, please take a look at the proud sponsors that enabled us this year to host this great forum tonight. I don't want to read the whole list, but I think I'm going to ask you to give them a round of applause for helping us doing this year. So thank you for all of our supporters. Indeed, I'm going to single out our signature sponsor for tonight, which is Life for Relief and Development, which is one of the largest charities across the nation and internationally renowned, that they work diligently with refugees and most underserved areas and the most needed areas across the globe, including the US. So thank you, Life for Relief, for being our signature sponsor for this evening. I will hold it here to give a chance for the rest of the program to proceed. And at this moment, I know Judge Morris was kind enough to call me the man of the hour. I'm not sure about that, but I think, as you well know, teamwork is what counts. And I think without the support of a great team of board members and volunteers who put all the arrangements and the logistics here, especially I have to note Ms. Hala Sibiti there. So please give her a round of applause. I think she's the one who goes through all the details and the arrangements to make this event successful every year. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our board chair, Dr. Saleh Musleh, and with his remarks to you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome each one of you, especially on this night. I know it's a very busy night. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Without mentioning them, you have the opportunity to look at them in the book. And I'd also like to welcome and acknowledge our board members. Would you please stand up and give them a hand? The subject of tonight is human trafficking. It's a business in which you have criminal elements. It's a crime that affects everyone throughout the world. I don't think there's any disagreement. And there are two participants, the criminal and the receiver, whether it's for enslavement, sex trafficking, or even organ donations. It is a big, big problem, especially in vulnerable countries that are undergoing political upheavals, such as Yemen, Syria, and countries in Africa as well. The subject, we have a wonderful guest tonight who will enlighten us, and I'd like to welcome Ms. Kelly Talon Franklin. I look forward to her coming up here to enlighten us about what's going on. I again thank you all for coming, and enjoy your night.
We're gonna proceed with the third segment of the AHRC remarks with our youth and young AHRC fellow here, student AHRC.
Good evening, everyone. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the AHRC for giving me the opportunity to come up here and speak tonight. I've always believed that human rights are based on fundamental moral values which we all share, and that any violation of these rights is a violation of our humanity as a whole. While most of us have probably heard about human trafficking at one point or another, many fail to grasp just how prevalent it is. During these times, more than any point in history, we're interconnected with the world around us, and we have access to information on the front lines. Every day we wake up to bad news from one place or another. The Iraqi people are being attacked by their own government. Student protesters in Hong Kong are undergoing police brutality. And more than 200 million African people are starving. Human rights are being violated indiscriminately across the globe. Basic things which we take for granted in our lives can be someone else's pipe dream. Living within this landscape, it can be easy to become desensitized to these stories. When you hear a different story every day, no matter how sad or morbid it might be, it becomes the norm. Now, I don't know about you, but personally, I don't want to live in a world where human rights violations are just a normal part of our lives. Hearing about human trafficking, it can be easy to brush it off as another sad story among many. Before you do this, allow me to talk for a minute about human trafficking and what exactly it is. Human trafficking isn't exactly a hot-button debate topic between government parties, nor is it something anyone argues about. That's because we, as a people, reached a consensus on this topic more than 150 years ago. In 1865, the 13th Amendment was added to the United States Constitution, and it abolished slavery. Now, human trafficking is just a fancy word for modern-day slavery. Most of the victims of this slavery are children, especially girls. Many of these children deal with a lot of abuse from their families and feel that their only option is to run away from home. A lot of foster children try to escape their foster homes and end up becoming slaves. These children have nobody to ask about them or look for them. They usually don't come from loving families, nor do they have a bunch of friends who notice when they're gone. Once the children are caught by a trafficker, they are sold into the industry and can never escape. Since the victims are usually so young and often impressionable, they can easily be coerced. After they're caught, the traffickers essentially brainwash the children and mold them into criminals who follow their every instruction. Instead of growing up in a safe community with strong role models, these children are doomed to be raised as criminals by criminals. The children are programmed into doing exactly whatever their captors want, often committing crimes on their behalf. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a famous philosopher from Geneva, once famously said, "Slaves lose everything in their chains, even the desire of escaping from them." The traffickers are not only stealing the lives and the bodies of the children, but any hope they have of a healthy future. The rare person who does manage to escape trafficking leaves with many mental issues. Often these victims have an identity crisis, struggling to distinguish between who they really are and the image molded by the trafficker. Many victims also become hooked on hard drugs while they are slaves, using the drugs as an escape from the rape and abuse. Even if someone manages to escape from modern slavery, the mental issues and drug addiction will remain a burden. The worst part of all this is that human trafficking is increasing each year. Trafficking has surpassed illegal weapon sales in terms of revenue, and it will soon surpass illegal drug sales. There are so many victims of trafficking who walk by us unnoticed. These children can't just go to the police for help. Often they're scared and they know no one except the trafficker. In most cases, they're working in unfamiliar land and they're completely lost. We must take note of this as a society and do our best to counteract these effects. If you see a young child who looks lost or uncomfortable, don't just ignore it, but rather make sure they're okay or report it to the authorities. Another way you can make a difference is by being a conscientious and informed consumer. If we keep buying and using products made by child slaves, there will continue to be a high demand for them. Spend $1 or $2 more and do it with a clear conscience, knowing that you're not helping to fund slavery. the Department of Labor has a great resource which lists all of the goods which we know are a result of child labor. Finally, the most important thing you can do to make a difference is to simply spread awareness. I didn't know about many of these facts until I prepared for this event. Educate those around you about the slavery epidemic. Show people that it is a big deal and that they should care and pay attention. If everyone in America treated the issue of human trafficking as seriously as we were right now, we wouldn't have an epidemic. But as long as we continue to brush over the topic and treat it like just another issue, things aren't going to change. Although the situation is bleak, credit must be given where it's due. Our government has noticed the impact of modern slavery, and they are working to combat it. Many of our government agencies have put measures in place and are working to stop human trafficking. Victims of sex trafficking are extremely hard to track, especially when they've been conditioned to hide the truth. It can become hard to distinguish a slave from a criminal when they're selling their bodies for prostitution and doing drugs. This dichotomy is what makes the issue so difficult. Human traffickers are taking innocent young children and turning them into criminals. These children don't deserve to be punished, and they need help, but usually by the time they're found, they've already become criminals. When America was formed, it was done so on the basis of a very important sentence. In the Declaration of Independence, it said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." It breaks my heart to say that more than 200 years later, many of the people in our country don't have these basic rights. Now, although there isn't a magical solution to solve human trafficking, I hope that we can collectively work towards one. I hope that this gathering isn't a wasted chance or just another dinner. I hope we take advantage of this opportunity to work together and try to make a true impact. We have people from all facets of the community here tonight, from politicians to law enforcement to educators to students. I'm confident that if we stand together, we can make a dent in the atrocity that is modern slavery. Thank you guys.
Let's give this young man a big round of applause. This is our future. He's at Wayne State University, and he knows about the dangers of human trafficking, and he shared it with you. Now, I'd like to introduce to you another young lady who is here with us this evening. And we've heard from the American Human Rights Council leaders, and now we're going to kick off our program. I know that everyone is anxious to hear from our keynote speaker and our presenters, so it's only right that we bring forward, first and foremost, Ms. Sharon Love Jones. She is an artist, and she is going to sing our national anthem. She has been honored on many occasions. She sang at Representative Isaac Robinson's swearing in. She recently appeared on the Michael D. Fox in the D Gala at the Henry Hotel. She also was at the 2019 Aretha Franklin winner of the Black Music Awards, not once, but twice. And she is proud to be here with us. She's won so many awards, I could go on and on and on, but her voice will speak for itself. Miss Sharon Love Jones.
You guys can join in and sing with me if you like. Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed, and our twilight's last gleaming, transport stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. On the ramparts we kept were so gallantly gleaming, and the rockets'
was still there. Oh, sing the star-spangled banner, yes, yes. Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Love Jones. Now we see why she's won so many awards. I'm just glad that you didn't have to listen to me sing the Star Spangled Banner. We'd have all been walking out by now. Let's give her another round of applause. Thank you so much, Ms. Sharon Love Jones. Human trafficking constitutes a serious challenge facing our society. It requires collective and collaborative efforts to defeat it. Human trafficking is a challenge that is not limited to certain countries. It is a global problem. Human trafficking and human slavery are crimes against humanity. And as we know, the American Human Rights Council is all about humanity and preserving everyone's rights. I'm going to proceed with introducing our first guest presenter. We have Miss April Nicole Rousseau. You can start making your way to the stage. She is an assistant United States attorney with the Eastern District of Michigan, where I used to work. She has done so much in the area of human trafficking, and she has been very, very successful.
Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Love Jones. Now we see why she's won so many awards. I'm just glad that you didn't have to listen to me sing the Star Spangled Banner. We'd have all been walking out by now. Let's give her another round of applause. Thank you so much, Ms. Sharon Love Jones. Human trafficking constitutes a serious challenge facing our society. It requires collective and collaborative efforts to defeat it. Human trafficking is a challenge that is not limited to certain countries. It is a global problem. Human trafficking and human slavery are crimes against humanity. And as we know, the American Human Rights Council is all about humanity and preserving everyone's rights. I'm going to proceed with introducing our first guest presenter. We have Miss April Nicole Rousseau. You can start making your way to the stage. She is an assistant United States attorney with the Eastern District of Michigan, where I used to work. She has done so much in the area of human trafficking, and she has been very, very successful. I just want to share, her bio is in your program, but what's really important is her success story. She has successfully prosecuted 27 offenders involved in 4 different international child exploitation rings. That's worth a lot. She has obtained an aggregate sentence of over 800 years imprisonment. Let's give this young lady a big round of applause. I present to you Assistant United States Attorney April Nicole Rousseau.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that very generous introduction. There's a favorite saying that many of you may have heard, and it's certainly a favorite of mine. And it's that the only way for evil to triumph is for good men to stand by and do nothing. Thank you for having me here, and I feel so honored to be talking to all of you today about such an important topic. I'd like to first talk about human trafficking and what it is and some common misconceptions. I'd like to second address how pervasive and insidious this problem really is. And I'd like to third talk about what law enforcement and our office is doing about this and how you in the community can also help. So what is human trafficking? Well, as we've already had some eloquent speakers tell us, this is modern day slavery, that's what it is. And it involves the illegal trade of people for exploitation or for commercial gain. It impacts all socioeconomic groups. It involves men and women, boys and girls. It doesn't require travel from one state to another or from one country to another. It's happening right here. It's happening in Detroit. It's happening in Birmingham. It's happening in Dearborn. It's happening in Ann Arbor. And sex trafficking specifically involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion in order to entice an adult or a child to engage in a sexual act for profit. So what do I mean by force, fraud, or coercion? Well, it's what many of you are probably thinking right now, right? Physical force and intimidation. So it certainly involves that, but it's a lot broader of a concept than that. So the traditional examples that you might be thinking of, we had just a few years ago, we had a case in which an offender pointed a firearm at a 13-year-old girl that he was trafficking and used that firearm to threaten her and intimidate her and continue to keep her engaging in commercial sex acts for his profit. But not only was that offender using weapons and abuse to have this girl continue to do what he wanted, but he also convinced this girl that he loved her, that he was her boyfriend. She was living with him. He was 10 years older than her. And he was providing food and health care, getting her nails done. And this is all part of how he made her so dependent on him that she felt she had no other choice but to continue the activity. But I told you from the outset that force, fraud, and coercion is much broader than you might think. Another form of force, fraud, and coercion that involves sex trafficking is offenders who foster an addiction to narcotics in their victims in order to make them dependent. And we've seen cases like this in our district. We've prosecuted cases in which offenders go so far as to inject heroin into their victims' arms to make them addicted to heroin so that they have no other choice but to keep coming back for more drugs. We've had situations where offenders give children cans of what they think are soda, but those soda cans contain narcotics. And that soda fosters an addiction that leads those children to feel like they have no other choice but to continue coming back and engaging in the sex acts that these pimps are requiring them to perform. And there's another type of force, fraud, or coercion that we're commonly seeing now, where pimps are sponsoring people who are here from other countries, immigrants. They're helping them hire attorneys so that they can get a legal status here. And they're using that control over their status as immigrants in this country in order to coerce them into engaging in sex acts or also labor trafficking. And the threat of being deported keeps these victims doing what these pimps are asking them to do. These victims especially are isolated from all of their support systems. They may speak little to no English. They don't have a job. They are dependent on their pimp for transportation, for food, for any sort of health care. And so there's a pattern here that we're seeing over and over and over again. Pimps are finding the most vulnerable members of our society and exploiting that vulnerability for their own personal gain. So now we've talked about what human trafficking is, but how prevalent is it really? Well, worldwide, traffickers are earning over $150 billion a year in profits from this illegal trade. The National Center for Exploited and Missing Children estimates that 1 in 7 runaways in the United States are victims of sex trafficking. And the average age of a victim of sex trafficking is just 13 years old. Sex trafficking cases in particular typically go hand in hand with the proliferation of sexually abusive images of children on the internet. And these numbers too, unfortunately, are on the rise. There was a 13% increase in reports to the National Human Trafficking Hotline and the Be Free text line from 2016 to 2017. And in 2014, the number of sexually abusive images of children that were out there on the internet was estimated to be 1 million. Now, just 4 years later, the number of reports of images of sexually abusive children has skyrocketed to 18.1 million. So what can we do about this very bleak picture that I've just painted? Well, what we can't and what we won't do is to give up. Just a little over a year ago, law enforcement seized and shut down Backpage, the primary website that pimps were using to advertise and to exploit victims. We're already tracking numerous other websites where they've turned to post these types of advertisements. We're looking into social media accounts. We're interviewing victims. We're seizing cellular phones, and we're running undercover operations. And just this past July, we partnered with the FBI to run Operation Independence Day, a nationwide operation to combat trafficking. And our FBI team here in Detroit, yes, please give a hand of applause. Our FBI here in Detroit, our team here recovered more victims. We were the 3rd highest in recovery of victims in that operation in the country. We were able to identify over 11 victims, and that operation led to 3 federal prosecutions. Along with that, our HSI Detroit team has been working hard. And in that same month that Operation Independence Day was running, HSI Detroit partnered with the United States Marshal Service here, and they were able to apprehend and arrest Derek Bell, who is the leader of a sex trafficking and narcotics ring at the Victory Inn. Thank you. Please give them a hand of applause. And that operation at the Victory Inn led to the rescue of over a dozen trafficking victims. So when we look at federal charges and we look at these offenders, we have a 15-year mandatory minimum federally and a maximum of life imprisonment. But I want to close by talking about people in the community, because people in the community can also help. But to do that, I think that people need to understand that this is not an easy road and it's not for everyone. What people sometimes forget is that at its core, sex trafficking involves both domestic violence and sexual abuse. The power and control wheel, the domestic violence cycle, that is very much part of what we face every day when we try to help these survivors. Their self-esteem is shattered. They feel completely dependent, isolated, and alone. And so if you want to join this fight, then you have to be ready for the fact that some of the people you try to help may never leave the lifestyle and may never stop loving the person that's abusing them. Be devoted to helping them and by sticking by them and making their life better, whether they stay in the situation or get out of it. Empower them, believe in them, stand by them, and whatever you do, don't be another person that gives up on them. The only way for evil to triumph is for good men to stand by and do nothing. So together, let's do something.
Thank you so much. When you hear that, that gives you faith that there is hope, that we can one day stamp out human trafficking. And someone that is working within the community as CEO of Life for Relief and Development. Again, his bio is in your booklets, but he has been so involved. A great doctor, And he is a professor and has authored over 20 different publications. But importantly, he was the founding member of SAIL, an interfaith organization between local churches, mosques, and synagogues. You know, that's what this event is all about. We are all here together because we care. And this doctor, this great doctor, has founded as well the BREAD organization, Building Responsibility, Equality, and Dignity, BREAD. And what he'd like to do is spread this ambition and passion throughout the world and convert the Life for Relief and Development from a relief organization into an interfaith relief organization that serves everyone, all of humanity. Dr. Hani Sakar, please come forward and give him a big round of applause.
Thanks for the introduction, and thanks for AHRC and for Ahmad Hamad for this beautiful function. And all my life, I've worked as a professor and teacher, and I cannot survive without slide presentation. So my presentation is about how to prevent human trafficking. We are working on thousands of children all over the world. We provide them shelter, food, nutrition, and medical supplies to be sure they are not exposed to the situation where they are vulnerable for something like this. My presentation is very fast review of the functions of Life for Relief and Development only in 1 year, which is 2019, and my presentation is just representative of what we are doing right now. Will you move the slide, please? 30% of people are vulnerable to human trafficking, that are children. And most of them, they are under about 18 or 17 years old. Next, please. Next, please. And as you can see from the slide, the first two ages, under 24, under 18, they represent more than 60% or 70% of those people who are exposed to human trafficking. Next, please. Okay, about 68 to 23%. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. Okay, some of the problem is going down in the last 10 years, and some of the problem going up. One of the problem is going up is labor. A lot of kids right now, because they have no food, they have no shelter, they work at 6 and 7 and 8 years old, unfortunately, and they are used by those people who are making money, big money out of them. So this problem is going more and more, and the other maybe a little bit going down. Next, please. I cannot see my presentation from here. These are total projects we have been doing for several years. Next, please. Okay, this is the major program we are doing all over the world. Number one, we are doing community development. We build communities, community centers. We build clinics. We build water wells, and we help people all over the world. Family and refugees assistance, water sanitation, emergency relief, education and orphan program. Next, please. Next, please. Next. This is emergency relief, example of emergency relief project. And go ahead, keep moving the slides. Okay, a few seconds each. Here are examples of orphan support. I don't have the flippers. Okay, keep moving. Okay, moving please, Sierra Leone. Okay, watch program, please move, keep moving. Okay, here in Afghanistan, Somalia, in Pakistan, Afghanistan again. Okay, Sierra Leone. Food baskets, we provide food basket about 23 countries all over the world every year. Keep moving, please. Okay, Gaza. Keep moving every 5 seconds, okay? Afghanistan, Sierra Leone again, every 5 seconds. Bangladesh, faster than Ethiopia, India, Lebanon, moving, Somalia, keep moving. 2 seconds each one. is not that fast, you can download it. Yemen, USA, Iraq, faster. Yemen again. Okay, education, keep moving. Okay, in Iraq, education. Palestine, education. Okay, USA, education. Social, keep moving. Okay. How can we end trafficking? By prevention and protection. So I would like to focus on two words from my presentation, is prevention and protection, especially for children. Keep moving. We are working on orphans program, moving, and we have about 5,000 orphans all over the world. One of the largest orphan programs done by any humanitarian organization in the world. We provide the kids with shelter, nutrition, education, and medical assistance. Here, example of the kids that will come to our functions, and in about 5 or 6 countries, most of them usually in the countries we're exposed to war before, we provide them with education. Here, example in Syria. Here, another education project in Syria, and keep moving. Okay, here, for example, this picture just 24 hours old. It was taken in Jordan, and here some of the orphans, they are posing in front of our camera, and this is orphan project program. Next. And this is example of how many orphans we sponsor Syrian refugees or Syrian orphans in Jordan, about 1,300. And this is another picture of them. Okay, so what do? We try to create an easy way where the donors and the orphan can meet each other. Just one second, please. We create like matchmaker website where you can find the orphan you are interested in sponsoring, the country, the sex, the age, and once you sponsor him, you at least sponsor for 6 months, and we will provide him with education, we provide him with food, we provide him with shelter, and we be sure that he is in school, and you will be provided with his update about his grades, about health, and he write to the donors a letter. Here, for example, this is the orphans, I think today, they are available. You'll find some of them are sponsored and some of them are not. The guy in the middle, I think he's not sponsored. I think probably his hairstyle is not good. But usually people choose, and at the same time, you will be able to sponsor. I have one person this week sponsored 14 child all over the world, from one from each country. Next, please. Okay, so I will finish by our slogan: where there is life, there is hope. In the last 27 years, we distributed around $475 million for the needy people over the world. Try to imagine thousands of orphans are sponsored by you, and thousands of orphans are sponsored by generous donors. You will end up, you are preventing the trafficking from the source. Thanks a lot for the invitation, and God bless all.
Let's give the great doctor a round of applause. You can tell that he is passionate about stopping human trafficking and stomping it out. And I know from the way everyone was trying to pay attention to his presentation, perhaps at some point it could be made available, and through our friend Imad, if you are interested in actually seeing it again, slow motion as opposed to every 2 seconds, you will have an opportunity to see it. But we thank you so much, Doctor, for going through all of that hard work and what you do for the world in so many countries. Thank you so much. Next we have, we're getting a little bit off of the program. We have a different person than who was supposed to be here. We were supposed to have the Deputy Chief Homeland Security Investigations from Detroit, but we have one that's even more special to this community. Because you see, she's with Homeland Security Investigations, and she is so special in Homelands because what she does is she is the community relations officer. So she's here to talk about what's done, not just maybe things that people view as problematic, but what's done to help the community. And I'd like you to give a round of applause. She's from the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Valentina C. Seeley. Welcome.
So good evening. My name is Valentina Seeley, and I am the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Community Relations Officer. I'm here to speak to you, with you about Homeland Security investigations and the work that we do to combat human trafficking. Before I move forward, I want to take a minute to thank Mr. Imad Hamad and AHRC for putting this forum together, for giving us a chance to come together to talk about a serious crime, for giving law enforcement a chance to connect with community and for community to connect with us. Often we speak about the importance of community engagement. And as it relates to human trafficking, it's vital that we know each other, that we understand our work, that we increase our awareness of this crime, and that we learn about ways that we can help victims. Because guess what? You, the community, you have an important role in helping us rescue victims. With that said, Homeland Security investigation is a critical investigative arm of the Department of Homeland Security. HSI handles criminal and civil investigations involving public safety, drug smuggling, child exploitation, human trafficking, human smuggling, illegal arms export, financial crimes, commercial trade fraud, and more, enforcing over 400 federal statutes. Our Deputy Special Agent in Charge, Angie Salazar, who was supposed to be here today to deliver the speech, unfortunately had an emergency, and she asked me to cover this important event. She sends her apologies. Homeland Security Investigations has the largest international footprint in the Department of Homeland Security and works with international partners to combat crime. We have over 200 domestic offices and 67 international offices in 50 countries. The global footprint allows HSI to be strategically situated to work with law enforcement partners as well as non-governmental organizations, which generates human trafficking tips and leads worldwide. In the U.S., HSI maintains relationships with hundreds of NGOs, service providers, and community organizations. Why? Because you are important to us. You are important to our ability to rescue victims, to combat this serious crime. We have dedicated human trafficking investigative groups in each of the Special Agent in Charge field offices with subject matter experts in outlying offices as well. These specialized agents participate in more than 120 human trafficking task forces nationwide, consisting of federal, state, and local law enforcement, as well as victim service providers. These partnerships with law enforcement and non-law enforcement are key in the strategy to detect offenders of this often hidden crime and to aggressively prosecute them. And because it can be so challenging to get victims to come forward, partnerships are crucial in identifying and assisting them. In fiscal year 2018, Homeland Security Investigations initiated 849 human trafficking cases, reported 1,588 criminal arrests, 538 convictions, and identified and assisted 308 victims of human trafficking. Our counter-human trafficking strategy is rooted in prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnership. We focus on victim-centric investigations where equal value is placed on the identification and stabilizations of victims, as well as the investigation and prosecution of suspects. Victims are crucial to investigations and prosecutions. Each case and every conviction changes lives. DHS understands how difficult it can be for victims to come forward and work with law enforcement due to their trauma. We are committed to helping victims feel stable, safe, and secure. Human trafficking is modern-day slavery. and it involves the use of force, fraud, and coercion. Millions of men, women, and children are trafficked into forced labor situations and into the sex trade world worldwide and in the United States, here in our communities. Many of these victims are lured from their homes with false promises of well-paying jobs. Instead, they are forced or coerced into prostitution, domestic servitude, or other types of forced labor. Victims are found in legitimate and illegitimate labor industries, including sweatshops, massage parlors, agricultural fields, restaurants, hotels, and domestic service. Trafficking victims can be of any age, race, gender, or nationality. Trafficking victims can be men or women, young or old, American or from abroad, with or without legal status. What we know is that traffickers prey on victims with little or no social safety net. They look for victims who are vulnerable because of their illegal immigration status, limited English proficiency, and those who may be in vulnerable situations due to economic hardship, political instability, natural disasters. We have over 30 victim assistance specialists and over 250 collateral duty victim assistance coordinators. We have over 30 forensic interview specialists. We welcome the opportunity to engage with our community partners. Through engagement and collaboration, we can help increase awareness of relief available to victims of severe human trafficking who are foreign nationals, including continued presence, the availability of the T visa, the U visa. Together, we can help communities understand what human trafficking is and where they can get help and report this crime. AHRC supports the DHS Blue Campaign, and as a matter of fact, I brought some material for you up front. This is our national public awareness campaign designed to educate the public, law enforcement, and other industry partners to recognize the indicators of human trafficking. I know that earlier the Assistant U.S. Attorney brought up the arrest of Derek Bell. I can share with you that I was in a community meeting when that came up, when the news of the capture came up. And I remember looking around the table and community members in that meeting just breathing a sigh of relief that he was captured. The reign of terror that he brought on the community was incredible. To see the relief, the tears in their eyes, that this trafficker, this criminal, will be brought to justice. And you know why? It's because of community members like yourselves that took the time to be here tonight to learn about human trafficking, to learn what it is that we do in law enforcement to prevent and to rescue victims. It's important for all of us to work together because our goal, our common goal, is to help victims of human trafficking and end this heinous crime. So thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your support.
Thank you so much. Ms. Valencia C. Seeley, Agent of the Community Relations for Homeland Security. Thank you, and thank you for the materials. Everyone will have an opportunity to take part and appreciate those materials as well. You can hear the thread. It's community and working together. And the feds have been here and presented. But we also have our local police departments that are involved every single day in stopping human trafficking. Because you can tell from all of these speakers, human trafficking is everywhere. It's everywhere in the world. It's here in Wayne County. It's out there where I am in Oakland County. It's all throughout Michigan, the United States, and every other country. And we have a great local police department. It's called the Detroit PD. And we have Sergeant Amber Roberson from the Detroit Police Department. She's going to come forward. She manages a dream team. She came from Gang Intelligence Bureau, and their main focus is human trafficking. She has 14 police officers that she supervises personally. She's been deputized as not only a Detroit police officer, but also a U.S. Marshal, because she works in collaborative efforts to ensure through her phenomenal work and her extended education that we work every single day to stamp out human trafficking. Sergeant Amber Roberson.
Good evening. First, I would like to thank the AHRC and you all for your attention tonight to allow me to tell you what the Detroit Police Department is doing about human trafficking. Historically, vice enforcement duties are the enforcement of morality and liquor laws. But over the last 2 years, our mission has changed. Our vision has changed. Our vision is to stop human trafficking. In 2017, we were awarded a COPS grant for $1.8 billion. That grant allowed us to expand our team from 5 members to 15. We also have a large historical presence in the FBI SimTech Task Force. Again, I have 6 members. I have 3 members that is full-time and embedded and 3 part-time. With this grant, we have also received specialized training. This training has allowed us to also educate our department. I have a liaison in each precinct within the Detroit Police Department that goes to educate the officers and is available 24 hours for any instances that may have human trafficking in relation, and we respond to all scenes. This grant also allowed us community education. Community education is vital in fighting this crime. We go to schools, community meetings, colleges. We've also been to the University of Michigan all the way in Ann Arbor to educate the students. Our mission is to combat human trafficking from all angles. We conduct weekly operations. We do online solicitations where we scrub the web for escort sites and we pose as Johns or clients, however you like to call it. We also do offer to engage operations where we use officers as decoys in high prostitution areas. We do reverse offer to engage operations where we pose as Johns and pick up prostitutes in those high prostitution areas. And we do decoy operations inside of the strip club. Detroit has 26 strip clubs within our community. The whole goal and the result is everyone that we encounter is interviewed, debriefed, and offered services. The purpose of this is to improve the quality of life of residents and also our victims. We also want to reduce the prostitution within the neighborhood. And many times these operations lead to the discovery of organized human trafficking rings. Our 2019 year-to-date statistics, we have investigated 155 tips. We have 101 misdemeanor arrests. We have 90 felony arrests, with 64 of those being human trafficking. We have rescued 15 endangered missing and executed 8 search warrants. The ultimate goal is victim recovery. What if it was your daughter that was taken? Some of the resources we use for our victims once they're recovered is Vista Maria, the Salvation Army that's here tonight. They're very, very helpful for us. We've used Alternative for Girls, Common Ground, and Joseph Project. Joseph Project is awesome. It's lawyers that's pro bono that help the girls recover their lives after they've been trafficked. They help them get their kids back, help them clean their records, and also help them with immigration issues. And again, that's pro bono. Commercialized sex. Also, I've mentioned that we have 26 strip clubs within the city of Detroit. Our most egregious was Penthouse, located on 8 Mile. Penthouse is known throughout the community for prostitution. In 2017, we conducted an operation where an officer was solicited. We did it again in 2018. This time, we conducted an operation twice. The second time, our officer was solicited while we were actually inside of the building. That tells you how egregious they are. That operation led to a license revocation. With that license revocation, that place was closed for 3 months and they were forced to remodel the VIP area where the prostitution occurs. Of course, we go back to 2019 and guess what? We're solicited again, which led to a nuisance and abatement lawsuit. We filed that lawsuit and we won. The judge ordered them a nuisance and declared them padlocked immediately for 1 year. This young lady is the block president of that community. She had been fighting with this club since 2008. She showed up to our hearing, and she also showed up to our padlock with the members of her community. Our latest news is M1 Health Spa. No sound.
Good evening, Hewell and Taryn. A guy just came up to us a few minutes ago and said they finally caught these people. That's what we've been hearing out here all night. A lot of these folks that frequent the plaza here didn't know exactly what M1 Health was, but they knew something shady was going on when they saw mattresses and women sleeping inside. One of those people actually speaking up, tipping off Detroit police to the human trafficking operation going on right here.
All right, we received this tip last week. The day we received the tip, we conducted an operation. That operation led to the mama sign, which is the lady in charge, being arrested and 2 victims recovered. Her final charges was human trafficking, commercialized sex, which is a 15-year felony, accepting earnings from prostitution, which is a 20-year felony, and keeping a house of prostitution, which is 5 years. The whole purpose of this is, thank you. The whole purpose of this gathering here today is once we rescue these victims, then what? They need a new beginning. They need help. They need hope. The recidivism rate is extremely high because once they're rescued, then what? So our future goals is to continue to dismantle these human trafficking rings, apply for additional grant funding, partner with resources for our victims because again, we need resources. These girls need help. And expand our community outreach. Our tips come from you. We need those tips. This is a picture of my dream team. And if you guys have any questions later, we're seated at this table and we also have cards and brochures and would like to find some new resources here tonight. Thank you.
Now it is my honor to introduce to you what we've all been waiting for. A great lady that has traveled from afar to be here with us this evening. She is extremely knowledgeable about this topic. Her bio is in your program, but briefly, she is a best-selling author, 2-time #1 best-selling author, an award-winning speaker. She is a recipient of so many international, national, and local awards, including the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal of Honor, the Ontario Provincial Volunteer Medals of Excellence, Canada 150 Certificate of Merit and Recognition, and Canadian Chamber of Commerce Women of Impact Award. She will tell you that her best accolades are found in the lives of those that she serves, that she has worked with, that she has helped, and that she has assisted with helping them to teach others. That's her passion. Her unconventional story motivates, ignites, and gives purpose to the meaning of stamping out human trafficking. She believes that we can change our collective and individual expression and outcomes, just like the other speakers that you've heard from here this evening. If we all work together, we can benefit the victims, the survivors, and our communities. She is the international chair of the BPW International Human Trafficking Awareness Task Force. And she is the C5W63 United Nations Women's Representative. Please welcome our keynote speaker this evening, Ms. Kelly Talon Franklin.
I'm going to ask you to stay here with me. So I'm Canadian. I ask for forgiveness, not permission. I'm in the right place. So could I ask all the presenters that have presented this evening to come really quickly and stand with me so I can thank you? And can we get a picture together so we don't get messed up by the end of the night? So I'm indulging. If you've been a presenter this evening and for our our AHRC folks, and Imad, where are you? Okay, I can't see, I have new glasses. So if I fall off the front, pick me up. I understand. So I just want to say thank you. You have a collective here that I would ask you guys to rise right now and give them a hand, please. They are working very hard. Can we rise and give them a hand? And it's an opportunity for you to just stretch and wake up, because we've got work to do. Yes.
Back up a little bit here, please.
We good?
No.
This camera right here.
On me, please.
Right here, eyes right here. Are they listening? Yes. Inspector Miller, can you come here? So this gentleman that's wearing this incredible Canadian uniform is an inspector with the Ontario Provincial Police, and he's the whole reason that I am here tonight. Can we welcome him as well? Okay, we're gonna look at he's on camera, guy. I can't kick him out. He's my driver. So we're looking at the camera right here, and this is the last picture. Did everybody get a good stretch? Good? Thank you so much. And I'll invite everyone here tonight. Oh, we're gonna have to take another picture. We'll do it we're going to do it at the end of the evening, I've been told. So, I asked myself, why am I here tonight? I'm a Canadian, I say A a lot, I'm wearing a lot of red. I drove the big truck, they asked me lots of questions at the border. I made it across. One of the reasons I believe I'm here tonight is to speak with a survivor voice. You can come and ask me anything you want to know at the end of the evening. I really want your eyes on this, your ears on this, and your hearts on this issue, because the answer to what needs to happen in your community, locally, statewide, across your nation, and globally, it's in this room. And it starts with you. So I need you to pay attention, because if you don't, you might miss your call to action. We took our pictures. How many of you now, after hearing some of the presenters speak, can say that maybe you were seeing human trafficking, maybe somebody you knew was labor trafficked, maybe some young person was sleeping on a couch providing sex for somebody? Oh, did I say that? Well, that's where it starts. How many of you think that maybe you've seen that, or your kids have seen that? Hands up. Anybody think that now, after hearing some of these presentations, okay, by the end of tonight, everybody should have their hand up. By the end of tonight, you should know that some of the very things that you see every single day in your life could be indicators or signs that somebody needs you. That somebody needs you to make a call to a national hotline. That somebody might need you to say, do you need help? That somebody might need you to see past the drug addiction, see past the homelessness. You see, I'm not into victim blaming, because I was that victim. And I work with police officers. I train at the police college in Canada. I work with international partners. And we cannot blame victims for their situation that puts them into this. Can I get a big yes? Yes. Okay, I'm in the right room. So I'm going to talk mostly tonight about girls, because that's my wheelhouse. I actually run a safe house. I speak all over to anybody that'll listen. I put more miles on my truck than my husband thinks should be on it. And we go wherever we need to go to listen to survivors. I think to myself sometimes, all the things that I've been through, how come I should be here speaking? And when I was in South Africa, I had a chance to read a quote in the Nelson Mandela Museum. And he got questioned by Larry King, who can be pretty chippy, right? Larry's pretty chippy. Anybody ever watch Larry? Okay, I'm old as dirt and a dinosaur, but we do know Larry King. And he asked Nelson Mandela in an interview, what gives you the right to be so egotistical, to speak and do all these things? And very quietly in his way, and I love this quote because it fueled me to be more passionate about what I'm doing than ever before. I have ego enough to speak for those that are voiceless until you will start speaking to end the stigma for their voices to be heard. Wow. I challenge you with that tonight. I challenge you to not be the person when you find out this happens to a neighbor's child, to be the one that says, oh, that's the neighbors down there. They're the problems that have problems with divorce. They're the people that don't go to church or don't go to mosque. Those are the people that are struggling with alcoholism. Please don't be those people. Those aren't the people that I'm sitting with tonight, are they? They're the people that say it's okay. Until you can talk your truth about this, I'm going to speak up. Because I can tell you from my parents, and I'll probably cry. If you feel upset that I'm crying, deal with it. I'm good. I just leak now. I leak my truth. Tears are healing and cleansing. So why don't you be those people? Because I can tell you that my parents were not the ones that said, woohoo. My daughter's home, she hasn't been sold for 8 weeks. The parents of these young people, and believe me, this is not just an immigrant issue, although it is. It's not just an organ issue, although it is. It's not just a labor issue, although it is. This is an injustice issue. And I can tell you that the statistics tell you that more and more of your young people that are American are the ones that are being drawn in because the criminals have figured out they can shame girls that come from good homes and embarrass them, coerce them, and use psychology to drag them in till they will not talk to anybody that they usually do for support. Hello? I'm talking in real time about the things that you will read 5 years from now. The victim survivors are speaking now. You need to hear them and change the way you're policing. Change the way that things are happening in court. You need to change the way that you're prosecuting. You need to change the way that you're supporting. They are telling us what is happening. We need to listen and we need to act, and you are the people that can get in front of this. The tail does not wag the dog. We need to be ahead of this issue. Who wants to get ahead of this issue? Who wants to say, not in my state, not in my community, not in my neighborhood, not our girls, not our boys? Hey, you better be careful clapping with me because I'm going to ask you to do something before you go home. So, I want everybody that can to prove to my husband that I'm not out retail shopping in Detroit, and I'm not at Cracker Barrel eating dumplings and buying clothes. So before tonight, if you want to meet Abda, my ambassador over at our table, would you do us the courtesy of taking a picture with us? And will you post it on social media? Because when we start to put this stuff out and we start to talk about this, then families that are going through this are not ashamed. Because they are not going to cheer about this like they do about mental health. They talk about mental health, I'm in a new program, things are getting better. People that go through this are not going to be cheering in media. We need to cheer for them. We're going to change this. We're going to celebrate tonight what we start on social media. It's not either or. It's not one faction, one civic group. It's not just the law officers, because I can tell you how many times these guys have rocked up and said there's no place to take a girl once we find them. Well, who's got a wallet and is going to write a check to help whoever's working in this community to put in a safe house? Because otherwise, they're just going to cycle in up to 17 or 18 times, like I did. If there's no place for girls to go, Why are you gonna do prevention? So they make a phone call and you send them right back to the streets and all they say is, they promised me this, but it never happens. You know what, I hear that from girls too. The pimp promised me he'd take me shopping, but he never takes me shopping. Don't be like the pimps. Last year, I worked with First Nations and Indigenous people and trained constables. I am set to go, so Indigenous folks, when I was in South Africa for about two and a half years ago, the chief of Johannesburg went to jail for trafficking girls. Imagine. I've been at car shows in Detroit and picked up girls from this community that were Canadian girls. I've been to the Kentucky Derby and I picked up girls that are Canadian girls that have been trafficked across this border down near the Kentucky Derby. And vice versa, girls that are brought up to the borders north of the border. I don't know why our money's worth less. Somebody's not very good at business, are they? But while we're talking about business, $350,000 can be made yearly per girl in Canada tax-free. They can only sell drugs once, they can sell a girl over and over and over. And I told you, I'm not being gender biased, but I'm so used to speaking about girls, you're just gonna have to forgive me tonight. I'm off to Kathmandu, Nepal, to talk to them and work with them on global. I'm off to, I don't know where I'm going in India, but apparently I can't touch the monkeys. And like I said, it's not just an immigrant issue. This is no respecter of anybody. These are criminals. And you know who else are criminals? Not just those that are pimping, madaming, guerrilla pimping, guerrilla madaming, individual, bougie pimping, whatever you want to call it. What about the buyers? What about those criminals? What about people that are buying minor age girls and boys because they think their bodies are commodities? My stats in Canada are very different than here. They say it's about rape, torture, exploitation, organ, sex, and more. Polaris here in the United States says 13.7 million cases in the USA. It also says 4.8 million are trapped in forced exploitation. That's the International Labor Congress. We already heard the 1 in 7 stat. Stole my stat, that's really good. I loved it. The 1 in 7 that are missing and exploited children are trapped in exploitation. So I thank you for everybody that's speaking about this. You know, talk is cheap. And I can tell you from the survivor perspective, we're sick and tired of hearing everybody say how important this issue is and not understanding that it could be your daughter, your granddaughter, your niece. You see, there's no face. This is the faceless crime because they're not standing on a street corner wearing red boots like me anymore, wearing red lipstick. This is on purpose, people. Because I'm noticeable and I have a voice for them, but they're not. They're invisible. Who has a phone? Hold your phone up. Hold your phone up. You're at risk for being trafficked if you are 18 and under. Just by the nature, and please do not go home and tell your children and vilify that phone because that actually might be the lifeline to you when they need help. Can you teach them how to use the phone properly? Teach them how they can be coerced. You need to take training. Listen to the survivors. I know it's international, but it's common and it's right here. And maybe you will never get overseas. You can still send money and help organizations, but it's not either or overseas or here. Do the work here, do the work there. Do the work everywhere, who cares? You can't take your money with you. You might as well invest it somewhere where it's gonna help somebody. And they're gonna have a big mouth like me and they're not gonna stop fighting to help your daughters, to help your sons. Because this is embarrassing. And I want to tell you how this goes, because it's really difficult to listen to. These commodities are treated like criminals, and God bless our police services, because they really try hard not to do this, but everything in police training is conviction, conviction, conviction. But these young people are not criminals, and yet they're put in the back of a police car. Because they have to be taken home and they need statements given. And they have to do all the things that you do when you go to a police station and you become a witness. But guess what? These young people, these young women, it's their choice to become a witness. And if we are not providing the trauma support and services for them, I can tell you the job of the police services to try to wait 18 months to get a girl that's been through all this stuff and now has to remember her statement 18 months later when I've been trying to help her heal from the trauma and she's trying to forget, and we need her to speak up and say it again, we better make sure we're dealing with her PTSD and trauma. Otherwise, it frustrates the police, it frustrates the court systems, it frustrates everybody. So I say, yeah, it's great, get her in a safe house, make her a witness. No. Help her to understand she's a victim, give her the self-directed choice to become a witness with PTSD and trauma support, make sure she's making self-directed choices, and help her to understand what her conviction with support can do. And guess what? Then you need 3 years of care for her after you've been to court. And I can tell you personally that this PTSD and trauma, anybody notice me get up and leave during people speaking? It's because they're talking about things that I've lived, and sometimes it's really hard to hear it. That PTSD and trauma never goes away. I manage it every day of my life. And if you want these young people to heal, and you want the community to heal from this, you have to understand. Okay, ask this question, it's really funny. It's good to say something funny when I'm this serious, right? How many of you know a young teenage girl? Hands up. Okay, how many of you women have been a young teenage girl? Hands up. Okay. How many of you are married to somebody or in relationship with somebody that's been a young teenage girl at some point? Hands up. I think I've pretty much covered the room. We know that teenage girls are cray-cray. That's street slang for crazy. We are trying to help them be a witness for what? They can't remember what they ate for breakfast or what color their underwear is. We're trying to get them to remember 18 months later after PTSD. Here's what happens. PTSD is trauma brain. It's like sticking your finger in a socket and frying your electric pathways in your head. They tell us that a teenage girl is not fully formed in her thinking till 24. And yet we're saying we're going to do all the prevention in schools. Kudos, good. But I can't tell you how many teenage girls have been in my office that heard this message at school, and when it was happening to them, when somebody's Romeoing them, taking 2 years to groom them, pretending they're their boyfriend, their mama, their sugar, whatever, they don't understand what they've been taught and how it relates to them until afterwards, and then they feel really stupid. Because the nature of the human brain in a young person before 24 is the front of the brain and the back of the brain aren't talking. So it's actually our job as the adults in the room. Who's an adult in the room? It's our job. Our job is protection of those minor age victims. It's not only their job, it's all our job together. So I'm half crying, so I can hardly see my notes. I want to tell you that I'm not here to tell you a bigger, better story, but I want to leave you with the story of a girl. Can I do that? And if you want to help us tonight, buy a book that's going to encourage you. I use the book so I can help 2 survivors that were 14 and 16 tell their stories and get English language credits because they couldn't safely go to school until court was done, 24 months in. Read their stories and know what it is. You'll see how fractured their minds still are. See, their PTSD and trauma, in the studies from Cal Berkeley, they actually did brain pattern studies on minor age victims that had been sex trafficked between 3 weeks and 3 months. And you know what? The psychiatrist that read the results cried on CNN because he said he'd never seen patterns in a human brain except for prisoners of war. So don't think we're going to get kids together, sing Kumbaya, put them in a house, teach them some crafts, and they're all better. When you get these young people, and I'm telling you, in Canada, here's our stats. 98% are female. 96% are Canadian, not immigrant. 72% are 18 and under. Median age in Canada right now is 12. Youngest victim I have worked with is 4 years old. Exactly. What are you going to do about it? Because most of those stories never hit your paper because of the age of the victim and because it's usually pornography. which is linked to this. As we've already heard about strip clubs, massage parlors, and all the extra places. So what are we gonna do? Well, tonight, it's not either or, but it's and also. Every one of you, it's not either or one of you is gonna do this and somebody's gonna get funding and they're gonna do that over there. Because if we're gonna do something here, locally, if we're gonna do something in your community, in your state, if we're gonna do something in America, in North America, and globally, this is an all hands on deck kind of thing. So I want you to take your hat off for 1 minute. I want you guys to take your hat off, literally, of who you are and what you do. What your job is. What your role is in a civic community, as a religious leader, as a community person, as an NGO. And I want you to make a commitment tonight before you leave this place that you are going to be the human that does something about human trafficking. And if you want to know what it is you can do, you need to visit our table. We need to talk to you about the training we can do so you do not victimize a girl. Because one of the youngest girls I worked with actually helped with a huge campaign. And we went province-wide and now we're going national because we're not going to be quiet about this. Because when we're quiet, the criminals win. So how many of you need to know what to say? How many of you need to know what to say day to day when you go for a coffee, when you're with your men's group, when you're with a group or a civic group, or when you're at mosque, or when you're at temple, or when you're at church? And if you want some things that are easy to do in real time, and you want some training, we are here. We will come, we will serve your community, we will do whatever you need to do. And the first thing we'll teach you to do is put your eyes and ears and learn not what those posters show, the girl laying down on a curb with her hair all greasy and slimy. My girls see that, they go, who the heck is that? That's not how we look. And as long as we think that the girls look like that are being trafficked in our community, we're never gonna help them. They don't look like that. They look like regular girls. How many of you want to help a regular girl in your community? Anybody here? Come and see me at my table before the night. Connect with us on the internet and email. Keep the conversation going and do not get tired because the criminals vote. Thank you.